it's body armor, and this ain't makeup, sweetheart, it's war paint.
They told you the war was over, and that the culture battle was done, dusted, settled. They told you to go home, smile nice, and obey. But you're here. And so am I. Which means it's not over. Who wants to begin?
I'm tired of sleeping and dreaming. How about the shell of a being? I'm tired of working and bleeding. I am the God and I mean it.
There can be only one.
16, pouring up another scene. Papa got the vaccine, so ain't no acting, play no practice. Niggas wanna check this album playlist. Acting brainless, fuck you, pay me. I'm tired of sleeping and dreaming. How about the shell of a being? I'm tired of working and bleeding. I am the God and I mean it.
Good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, whatever the case may be. Put it on. It's time for WARPAINT. Today we are going to talk about the big bad reefer. We're going to talk about the benefits, we're going to talk about the downsides, we're going to talk about the different cultures, and we're going to talk about our own testimonies. I have a girl coming on who has a good deal of experience and education to share with all of us. And as most of you know who have been watching this for some time, I myself have a background in medical marijuana. I used to help run a dispensary service in San Francisco, California, and I also helped my friend withdraw from opioids using a 1-to-1 of THC and CBD. So as you can imagine, I am a big advocate, and I want to highlight and point out the absurdities of the reefer madness that has seeped back into our society. This is a bipartisan problem. You have people on the right, you have people on the left. They're both absurdly obsessed with demonizing this plant, and nobody who says it's a wonder pill, it fixes everything, nobody who says that is a serious person. But to ignore all of the dramatic benefits that it has had up to this point and all of the research that backs it up is just asinine, and we will continue to treat it that way. I'm going to play you guys a brief video of a woman that we have coming on. She's very cool. I think you all are going to like her very much. And then we're going to get to it. This is WARPAINT. I'm so glad that you have put it on.
Alcohol addiction, addiction, cannabis addiction. The main reason why you can't attribute a alcohol or opioid addiction to the same level as a cannabis addiction is because your cannabis addiction is always going to be more psychological. There is no neurotoxicity damage in the way that alcohol and opioids are doing to people. So if you are someone who cannot handle cannabis and you cannot have it in your life and you are recovering from it, if you notice, your physical symptoms are always going to be very mild. You're not going to have diarrhea. You're not going to have the shakes. You're not going to have any kind of horrendous physical ailment to where you need to be in a detox center and be observed so you don't die. There are even stoners like me who can go weeks at a time without smoking or having any edibles or any cannabis in our system without having any of those withdrawals or being uncomfortable. What I don't appreciate is these anti-cannabis shills going around telling people that the withdrawal for cannabis is all so severe and they're attributing it to the same level as alcohol and opioids and other drugs. You're not being honest. Cannabis is not inherently addictive like nicotine, alcohol, and opioids. So let's recap. The neural pathways in our brain that handle dopamine in our reward system is incredibly powerful. People out there addicted to food, to sugar, to shopping, to social media. While each of those things have factors that can negatively affect human beings, the key common denominator here is you. There is no chemical in cannabis that is going to bind to your brain and make you as physically dependent on it as alcohol does. Do you understand? Say I understand. I'm saying this in the most loving way possible. If you are addicted to cannabis, it is not because there is something wrong with the cannabis plant. Stop saying that cannabis is ruining society. Stop saying that people are scream vomiting. Stop saying cannabis is bad because someone paid you to lie. All we want is for the real, unbiased, scientific information about cannabis to be shared and not reefer madness.
And with that, help me welcome our guest for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you
I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me? My mic seems to be on.
Uh-oh. I don't hear anything.
Do you have headphones?
Uh-oh. Hold on. Hold on.
It's okay.
I
We're
don't
all
know.
guys on the inside. We'll figure it
Shoot.
out.
You can hear me?
Mhm.
I can't hear you. I
Do you
was.
have headphones?
Oh, hold on. Okay. Hello?
Hello?
No? Dang. Hold on. Really quick. Let me see. Let me leave and come back. Hold on.
That's all good. So anyway, as you guys know, I'm definitely never gonna be no, you have not joined at the end. You are here at the very beginning, actually, David. So don't worry about it. Let's see if it works this time.
It works.
It works! Woo!
Yay.
Okay, so why don't you tell the audience who you are, a little bit about yourself, and kind of like your introduction to like the cannabis world.
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Vizarant. I am a cannabis content creator and re-educator. So my whole mission and vision is to share like the video says, the unbiased scientific information that we have about cannabis with the world. Our government has done a really good job of doing propaganda since the 1930s. And they got a lot of generations to be afraid of cannabis and just believe the wrong thing. So I think it's high time, literally, pun intended, high time, that we have the correct information. And then we have that set as the standard and not the horrible lies that Big Reefer Madness insists upon sharing.
That's absolutely true. And the fact of the matter is, and I think you would agree as like a serious advocate, there are some people who try to misrepresent the movement by saying, oh, they think it cures everything. They think it's for everyone. How do you feel about that statement personally?
So I am a daily heavy user. I love it, but it is not a cure all for everything. I think across the board, it benefits people for a wide variety of ailments. Like, I've seen it work with people who have seizures. I've seen it treat Parkinson's. I've seen it treat depression. I've seen it treat low appetite. There's a lot of ways that it can be utilized and ways that it can benefit people. But for it to be the absolute cure all, like it's going to cure your depression, it's going to cure autism, it's going to like do all those things. That's a little much. I don't think we found that substance yet on this planet, but cannabis is definitely a lot better though than the propaganda says.
Well, I think it's ridiculous. I lean heavily right wing, and that's not really the important thing. But a lot of right wing people, um, they demonize it because of like the subcultures that come along with it, and they disregard a lot of the medicine. But at the same time, one of our biggest enemies on the right wing, and I think like a lot of lefties agree on this, is the opioid epidemic.
Yep.
And I don't know how you cannot trust big pharma, especially, feelings I didn't take the vaccine myself. I don't trust the jab. But like, I don't understand how people who are so adamant about these kinds of beliefs, about being against opioids, about being against fentanyl, about being against, mRNA, how could you look at that company with a straight face and say, oh, but on cannabis, I totally think that you're telling the truth and think anybody should be taking you seriously? It's beyond me. And it's where there's definitely a lot of sane people on the right wing who don't believe that and who understand exactly what level we're on. But it's just the level of propaganda that I've seen come back recently is so much higher than it has been in the years prior. And you see this stuff resurfacing about, cannabis induced psychosis. You see I forget you would probably know right offhand, that this when you
Vomiting.
the vomiting.
Yeah, scream vomiting.
Oh, yeah, there's another, whatever, it doesn't really matter. But there's I've seen people try to connect recent murder trials and all sorts of other stuff to like this cannabis induced psychosis. Even people referring to Rob Reiner's murder. They were like, "Oh, the son had cannabis induced psychosis." Like, so where do you stand in all of this, especially as somebody who is an active user and an active promoter?
So I definitely can see right through their lies. It's when I was younger, I feel like when we were kids, it was harder to know the truth because we didn't already know much to begin with. And so when authoritative figures are telling us, hey, this is bad, don't do it, you're trying to follow the rules. You're trying to fall in line with what everyone else is doing for, survival's sake. So I'm coming at this now from a psychological point of view that I think many people are actually like, we're witnessing what legitimate brainwashing looks like. Like the fact that they keep forgiving the government over and over and going, oh no, they'll do good this time. Like their belief is that they're like batting 1,000, that they're always doing the best. They always have our best interest at heart. But the sick reality is that it's actually the opposite. There are a lot of dark deals going on. There are a lot of things that they're not telling the public. Their misuse of funds, like especially those corrupt charities that they say money's going to go to help with the fire victims, and then no fire victims get helped. It's, they embezzle it instead. So, with this case, especially with the rich history of cannabis, I really believe that our government saw that cannabis could be a actual competition. It could be a threat. And so what they can't tell the truth about it, because if they actually inform people, then
Oh no. Are we all gonna put on our tinfoil hats? Or no, she probably just got a call, honestly. She'll join back in a second, but I'll continue right now. I mean, she's absolutely right. The level of programming and propaganda that we've been able to inflict upon the populace is astounding. Here you go.
yeah, sorry, I had a call.
No, it was so funny. I was just like, all right, everyone, put on your tinfoil hats. They cut her off.
Yeah, they cut me off. But no, it's true though. It's they can't tell the truth about cannabis, because then more people would be informed and they would choose cannabis. I'm seeing more and more people opt for cannabis in general, like cannabis infused edibles or tinctures or whatever. Older people too, they're choosing this instead of the opioids. They're choosing this instead of the pills, and that is their biggest fear. They don't want a big wave of people to abandon their bottom, their pills and their substances, because that affects their bottom line. And so the only way they can get people to completely abandon it is by convincing them that it's going to make you crazy, that it's going to hurt you, or you're going to go kill people, or all these horrible things are going to happen to you. And it's not. And I was a dare person a long time ago. I was in that group. I was like, I'm not going to do drugs ever, and now I do a lot. It's and it was horrifying when I tried cannabis for the first time. I was like so angry that it wasn't as bad, or nothing happened. Like I took it and I expected it to be like meth. I expected it to go crazy and get the shakes and want to go like hurt somebody. And I was like, okay, I'm preparing myself for like the transformation. And then nothing happened and I was just chill. And I'm like, oh no. I'm like, we gotta go investigate this.
Yeah, that's pretty I mean, a lot of people have that experience, you know what I mean? And the fact of the matter is, when you have these like weird cannabis episodes as of recently, they typically stem from either, like fake hemp products
Yep.
that are like poisonous, or they stem from like extremely high potency. Like, why the hell would you ever do this level of potency your first time?
Right.
Like, ugh. And I mean, that wasn't available, even as much as like when I started using cannabis when I was like 13 years old. So like now over half of my life. And quite frankly, people, my big thing, especially when it comes to my own experience, is like people will often refer to it as like, the gateway drug. It's the gateway drug. You start smoking the reefer and then you start doing the drugs. And quite frankly, for me and for so many other people, it was the exact opposite. By the time I saw my friends getting into like, ecstasy, coke, whatever the hell, I was like, you guys look insane. You don't look like you're having any fun, and this is so much better. So like, I don't need that. I'm good. And like, I've never looked at like, a serious drug addict and thought to myself like, you know what? Like, I want me a piece of that. Like, they really seem like they have their shit together. And you being in the industry, I've been in the industry before. I worked in medical cannabis for quite some time, both between San Francisco and San Jose, and a little bit of time in LA. But overwhelmingly, like, there are so many successful people who are not only in the cannabis industry, but like who you would never expect that like smoke every day. They go home and instead of having a beer, they smoke a joint, or they get like a tincture, like you said, or like a drink or whatever, and it's just like an infused beverage, and they have their little buzz and then they go on. We're talking about, replacing opioids with weed. I know a lot of people, even in my current life. My close a close friend and producer of this show has decided, like, he's been on carnivore for a long time, so he's like resetting his body, and he's had a couple drinks recently, and he thought to himself, this feels shitty. I feel shitty the next day. I don't feel good. And I recommended him. I don't know if you ever heard of them. They're called oh my gosh, I wish I remembered their name. Why am I I'm having a serious pregnancy brain moment. I'm gonna look them up. I think it's Moonflower.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
Moonflower hemp. Yeah. So they make really delicious cannabis infused, like, farm bill legal cannabis infused like lemonades and little things, and they're delightful. They're so great. And my friend was like, I don't want to, when I want to let a little steam off, I don't want to drink this shit anymore. It makes me feel bad. I was like, well, you should check out Moonflower. They've got these, really low dose farm bill legal. You can get them delivered to your front door. And he, like, we were playing Dungeons and Dragons. We do that once a week. And he, instead of having a drink, he had one of the, Moonflower things. And he was like, oh, it was terrific. I had so much fun. And I slept like a baby. I was like, no shit, man. Like, that is like happening more and more. So not only do you have big pharma in a panic, you have big alcohol. Like, what are we going to do when people aren't rotting their livers and blacking out and beating the shit out of their friends?
That's right. Because it's funny that most, actually, if not all of the negative symptoms that they're trying to say cannabis gives, that's everything alcohol does. Alcohol makes you vomit. Alcohol makes you violent. Alcohol makes you act out of character. Like, it's not the cannabis. Cannabis makes you calm down. So that's why it's like, it's very funny to watch them blatantly lie. And I'm like, there's millions of stoners out here, like, who literally know the truth. And like, we're going to tell everyone. Like, I don't know what y'all think.
No, it's amazing. And honestly, it helps with, like, I know people in legal states who use it for like intense morning sickness, and it's such a safer alternative than a lot of the pharma equivalents. And it's like, people would, shake their finger at them, oh, you're using cannabis while pregnant. And it's like, I'm doing what's best for me and my baby. And quite frankly, I wish there was more research allocated to stuff like that, because women who seriously suffer with like hypermesis like could really use some kind of relief. And I think that I think it's reasonable to assume that there is some kind of relief that they can get with medical cannabis. And I've seen it work for moms who have been able to try it out in, legal states without getting hauled in by CPS. But if only we can have the research there. Like, wouldn't it be great for women to feel comfortable being pregnant again? Wouldn't it be
Yes.
awesome to like incentivize families again and incentivize good relationships where like the pregnancy doesn't have to be so miserable that you just like won't even go through it?
Yeah, absolutely. I was pretty miserable in my last pregnancy, and that was actually the pregnancy where I had wished that cannabis was actually more socially acceptable, especially for us in that state, because I was like, I don't feel comfortable actually taking a pill that I don't really know what's in it, you know.
Mhm.
I think since we have natural cannabinoid receptors, I'm like, so does my baby.
Yep.
It's not gonna be harmful to us.
Well, not only
So
that, but through a lot of research I done, I've you learn like the placenta itself acts like a filter and changes the very chemical makeup before it even gets to the baby. So
mhm,
like unless you're eating a shit ton of it, it shouldn't even really pass through your placenta at all. So and I'm not like declaring that as an expert. That's
yeah.
what I've this is the research that I've come up with. And also, I know quite a few moms, like I said, in California in particular, where they used cannabis their entire pregnancy. And guess what? Their kids are beautiful and healthy and smart and capable. And there's no, like, it wouldn't be like, oh, well, like, unlike fetal alcohol syndrome,
Right.
where if the mother's drinking 24/7, your baby's going to come out completely. It's odd, like you can literally read it in the physiognomy of somebody with fetal alcohol syndrome. That is, from my experience and from what I've witnessed, completely non-existent when it comes to cannabis. So it's just like we were talking about, it's either like the side of big pharma or it's alcohol. Both of them hate cannabis. And I understand why a lot of people don't like the subcultures of cannabis, because it's undeniable that gang culture has been able to just become legitimized through legalization. And I think it's disingenuous not to acknowledge that, because I even myself, I was working in a West Coast lifestyle magazine, and the people you encounter, like a lot of them were openly talking about like, oh, I'm going to make a cannabis church because that's tax free. Like, oh, I'm getting away with it. Like, oh, like I'm a thug, but now I'm a legal thug. Haha. you
Right.
know? So I understand wanting to minimize that culture on a grand scheme. I also understand the need to keep it away from minors.
Mhm.
In extreme cases like seizures or cancer, I can see maybe like CBD or something like that, or maybe even one-to-ones, because extreme cases calls for extreme measures. And if you can avoid having opioids in your system, why wouldn't you?
Right.
Uh, but at the same time, I think you and I can probably both agree that like one area that of cannabis advertisement, one area of cannabis marketing that makes me really uncomfortable is like the weird, like cartoonish advertising, the they're cute, but it's like, who is this for? You
Mhm.
know? um
Right.
I think if the argument is that it's medicine, it should be treated like medicine. And like, while you should be able to have some creative liberty, like maybe keep the kids cartoons off of cannabis products. I don't know.
No, yeah, I definitely see that could be, confusing if a kid comes across that and thinks that it's for them. But definitely, the one thing too I wanted to add on to that as well is I love the fact that cannabis does not change its properties based on who's using it and why. And that's the biggest thing I've been campaigning for when I make my content, is that some people go, oh well, cannabis is good only if you're using it for medicinal, and then I usually interject and I say that
Right.
like it doesn't, like, the cannabis is not changing. It's like, oh, here you need it for medical, I'm going to change to be good now for medical. Like, no, like it's going to be calming for everyone across the board, unless you're actually like allergic to it or something. But
Yeah.
that's Yeah.
I do think it is
I think that's
properties
cool.
that can make some people uncomfortable sometimes, but I think that's more of like your state of being at the
Oh,
time
yeah.
rather than the thing itself.
Yeah.
But I also like I very much agree with you. I think that it should be more commonly socially acceptable. I love the cannabis cafes in California. That was my favorite part of being there for a while. I think like COVID killed that pretty heavily. But
Yeah.
I my suggestion for how to approach it socially is not to like have it legal to smoke everywhere, because you don't like people who don't like the smell don't like the smell, and it's
Yeah.
not fair to like make them encounter it in public. I think like common sense laws like that make sense, but I think it should be treated like coffee culture. Like people commonly compare it to alcohol, and I think that's extremely disingenuous, because
Yes.
very much like coffee, you can have it every day, you don't need it every day. You can have an espresso or you can have decaf. You can eat like chocolate covered coffee beans, or you can drink a Red Bull. Like there's such a wide variety, and people use it for such a wide variety of
Yes.
reasons, and in different intensities. So there isn't like, it's not like you take a cannabis and it's all the same. It's like
Yeah.
there's different levels, and there's different effects, and there's non-psychoactive cannabis, and then there's heavy duty THC
Yeah.
high potency cannabis. And it's there are people who develop dependencies on the habit, but the again, where people lose me is when they start trying to say that it's chemically dependent.
Yeah, it's not.
there's
Yeah.
there's no chemical dependency in marijuana whatsoever, and in fact the only scientifically proven gateway drug is opioid pills to heroin.
Yep. That's right. And I think that's so funny that they seem to forget that. They're like, oh, don't look at that data, but look at the made up data we made about cannabis. And I'm like, that's not fair.
Again, the people around me who
Mhm.
equally distrust the narrative of big pharma when it comes to anything to do with your health, but on the same side, cannabis is bad for you and will make you crazy. It's
Yeah,
like,
right.
can you
It's
just
so
like pick a
silly.
lane? Can you stick to one or the other, because these ideals are not compatible with each other. And
Right.
I think keeping it out of the availability of research has been a big problem. So I don't know how I've talked ad nauseum to my audience about how I feel about rescheduling, but how did you how do you feel about the recent push for rescheduling and the rescheduling from 1 to 3?
I don't think it's enough. I think they should have just fully legalized it and just let the cat out of the bag, because I have a favorite quote from John Ehrlichman in 1994 when he testified in front of Congress about the true intentions of the war on drugs during the Nixon's presidency. And he said, we knew we couldn't make it illegal to be against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate black people with heroin, hippies with marijuana, we can raid those communities. We can terrorize them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. So they will put these things in place, knowing full well that they were absolutely lying, and they put in millions of dollars to convince the public of something that's not true. And now they're still kind of trying to backtrack, going, oh, okay, look, we're going to do schedule 3, it's not that bad. And I'm like, no, 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 let's just be intellectually honest here, roll it all the way back, just admit it, say, look, okay, you got us, we lied. Okay, here's the science. We're sorry, here you go, here's legal weed, let's protect it like they protected alcohol, because this is exactly the playbook of what they did in the 1930s with alcohol. They poisoned the barrels, they did propaganda against it, they literally killed people just to get them to be convinced to abandon alcohol, until finally they couldn't control everyone, because everyone just kept making it and selling it and drinking it, and it just was going crazy. So finally they're like, okay, fine, we'll we'll write it into law. You guys get your alcohol, and now it's a protected substance, like across the entire nation minus the dry states. So I'm like, if they could do that then, we could do that today with cannabis. We can make them have to ratify it into law, but everyone has to work together.
No, you're absolutely right. And honestly, like I pretty much entirely agree with what you said. I think that descheduling entirely needs to be the priority rather than
Yeah.
rescheduling. It doesn't
Right.
make sense to have it in the same category as opioid pills. And it also, what it does is it opens a secret back door to big pharma to develop synthetic alternatives and
Yes.
claim that that's a superior product because
Mhm.
look at us. Okay, I know we said that it doesn't have any positive effects, but like it definitely does. But ours that we make is better. And
Yeah.
I think that that was the purpose of rescheduling before
Mhm.
descheduling. And I
Yes.
think that it's incredibly obvious if you're just paying attention to the pattern that you're absolutely right. This is following almost like page by page
Yes.
the pattern of prohibition and then
Yeah.
legalization, starting with using these little hot spots across the United States as like testing zones where like, okay, the
Mhm.
federal government's not going to step in, we're just going to like peek over your shoulder and see how you tax it and see how the community reacts, and we're not going to like arrest you, but like we're definitely keeping an eye on you and we'll decide how we're going to deal with it from there. And it's like,
Absolutely.
okay, so you don't want the federal and government involved, in your life. You don't want the federal government taking extra money from you. You don't want them determining what you do with your body or whatever. Like there's so many different on both sides.
Mhm.
But at the same time, your people are still willing to fall for their propaganda to
Right.
give them more power. Like when
Right.
does it end?
I think it ends when everyone's uncomfortable. I think, I mean, I don't want people to suffer, but I feel like it's, as human beings, we're not going to wake up until we feel like we've lost almost everything, because at that point, that's when people start fighting back and going, well, you can't take anything from me if AI took my job. You can't take anything from me if my money doesn't mean anything anymore. The value of the dollar is going down, or it's like, we go the way of Venezuela or something. Like, it needs to get to that point so people can actually hold the government accountable. But right now, while we have so many people who are still fighting and still struggling and still holding on, it's like we want to fight for what we want, but at the same time, we don't want to rock the boat and go to jail or get in trouble to a point where we then are the only ones who lose something and then nobody else.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really precarious place to be in because
Mhm.
if the federal government did decide they wanted to make an example of, let's say they really
Right.
could. They could
They
just
could. Yeah.
decide, like, okay, she makes this content with this federally illegal substance, and I'm just going to swoop in. And as somebody who deals in right wing politics on the regular, this is not an uncommon theme
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, well, when are they going to decide that I'm a threat to the American public? What, like, how many watch lists am I on? I don't know.
Right.
Um, and the idea that the federal government has that kind of manipulative power over the populace is scary enough.
Yeah.
But on top of that, to also understand that propaganda like cannabis induced psychosis stuff, I'm on X a lot. And maybe I'm feeding my algorithm exactly what it needs to send me all of this stuff, but I see like constantly now it's just post after post.
Mhm.
It's cannabis induced psychosis. Listen to me, I'm a doctor, trust me. And it's full of these people who were like just a few months ago like mocking trust the science, like, oh my gosh, you're so right. It's like I just want to shake them by their shoulders. And I don't know at this point, like you said, there's a great level of risk when it comes to
Mhm.
advocacy. So for the
Yeah.
normal person who's just trying to absorb information, there's like people like you and me who have our voices suppressed, who don't necessarily have the reach. And then there's like I have a PhD. Look
Yeah.
at me. So how do you, in a world like that, in a place where information is manipulated and controlled, when it like literally down to who it's dispersed to, like how do you get this message out as loud as it needs to be in order for us to do anything?
So, there's actually a quote from Elvis where he says, If there's something you can't say, then you sing it." Right? You put it through music. And for me, I have applied that to, if there's something important that we need to talk about and we can't just say it, then let's hide it in fun content. Let's hide it in fun songs and upbeat, dancing music and things like that. But but like we're still sharing the crux of the message. And that was I actually made a couple of videos like that where they were really funny to listen to, but like if you actually listen to it, you're like, oh no, like oh no, like I'm showing like quotes from the government, quotes from like these people who are like, you know, saying things, and like people are watching them over and over, and they're like, oh wait, hold on a minute, like wait, this is a fun video, but wait, what are you saying? Like, you know, it's able to get across. And those, I feel like those fun videos kind of get shared a little bit further than just, you know, making a straight talking video, because like I don't want to get in trouble for anything, but at the same time I am essentially trying to hold the government accountable. Like
Right.
I'm encouraging people to go ask questions, go do your research. Do not even believe for a second any government site. Go on a second, third party, like go and
Double check
compare
and triple check
notes.
those for sure.
Yeah.
But, like, just you're right. Like inherently, just trusting government entities has
Hmm.
not really been proving to do us any good.
Right.
So we do have a comment here that I do want to acknowledge. Says it happened to my kid, and I'm in a Facebook group full of families we've been affected by it. And I'm assuming he's talking about cannabis-induced psychosis, or like some kind of like
Hmm.
drug-related problem when it comes to kids. Um, Not sure if this person was here earlier when we both said that it's not for kids. But I will say, as somebody who was in and out of treatment programs at a very young age, because I did start using cannabis at way too young of an age, um, I agree to the extent that the habit that it does form when you're that young
Yeah.
does lead to problems. It can lead to problems. But on the other hand of that, it's often a sign of self-medication.
Yes.
Um, Young people who reach out to drugs at all, whether it be weed or otherwise, are looking to help either relieve some kind of stress relation to like trauma,
Hmm.
or there's some kind of neurodivergency. And I'm very hesitant to say that, because I do think that that's like heavily manipulated into giving people like special privileges. And I think that like people, the self-diagnosis crap is nonsense. But like people who are truly having problems at a young age with school, with home life, with all sorts of other stuff, they will lean on things like weed,
Hmm.
and they'll do it in a really unhealthy manner. So I don't want to make it seem, again, like I want to bring it back to the point that we've tried to a few times, that this is not a cure-all. It's not meant for children. It's not meant to be something available to kids.
Hmm.
And it does have negative effects on particularly younger kids.
Hmm.
Um, but again, the root of that, and I'll let you comment on it too. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. I think the root stems from a problem that's unrelated to weed in particular. It's
Yeah.
the reason that they're reaching for this stuff needs to be addressed, not the plant itself or the availability of it.
Hmm. I agree. And in regards to cannabis induced psychosis, I do want to mention that a very key point that a lot of people keep leaving out is that cannabis does not spontaneously produce psychosis in individuals. It is in afflicted, sorry, in afflicted individuals who are vulnerable to it, who have a history, a family history, a deep history of either psychosis, schizophrenia, or you know anything else like that in that regard. But the thing I don't appreciate the big reefer madness people doing is saying that if you smoke cannabis upon your first puff or your first time or second time, you're going to then go insane. And that's just so completely unfair, because that's completely taking out all of the healing and disregarding all of the testimonies from people who actually needed it to overcome whatever they were dealing with at the time. And making that distinction, I think, is really important if we're gonna, you know, like, you know, for people to understand, to keep it 100 in that sense.
Right. And that's something that I definitely lean heavy on when I talk about the propaganda, because you're right. There is no credible evidence to suggest that marijuana, especially first time use
Yeah.
or first upon the first inhale, will give you psychosis.
Right.
That's completely unprovable. There's nothing that I've ever seen, and I've spent over a decade researching this stuff. I would be happy to admit, I'm always happy to admit when I'm wrong.
Mhm.
I wasn't when it came to the vaccine. I will say that was really tragic to
Yeah.
have people like call me on the phone like, holy shit, I shouldn't have done that. Like, I didn't want to be right about that. I'm like happy to be proven wrong when it comes
Mhm.
to stuff like this. There has been no credible evidence to link cannabis to the cause of psychosis. Where you are also 100% correct is that people who are already who have a family history of it, who are predisposed to mental disorder or psychiatric problem, and
Yeah.
that could be triggered from early childhood trauma. That could be
Mhm.
triggered from a lot of things that aren't necessarily just mental illness in the family. Like if you were, abused as a small child, that could linger, and that could trigger that could be triggered when you use cannabis, especially high potency cannabis. But I just think that it's disingenuous to throw out the baby with the bathwater. And
Yeah.
I think that lying about um cannabis being able to spontaneously cause psychosis, it doesn't help them. It doesn't like hurt us. It like
Yeah.
it only if what it does. Oh, I guess it does hurt us in the sense that people who are just casually and passively absorbing this information, people who are just like, doom scrolling on Twitter, they see, like cannabis induced psychosis, like this is a
Mhm.
problem. And it's like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Um, because when you actually dig into the research, there's no credible research.
Yeah, and I like to use myself too as a living study, or a living experiment for the fact that cannabis does not cause psychosis or anything violent, because I have a pretty bad, backstory. Like my mother has Munchausen's by proxy. So I was actually held hostage in my home for over 17 years, and she was medically abusing me. And over time she got the rest of the family to feel comfortable hurting me as well. So they all covered her, like her story. They would all like, help her hurt me. And it wasn't until the end, when she tried to take my life, physically getting on me and strangling me, that I actually broke free from like, okay, this isn't normal. Because I kept forgiving her over and over and over, like, oh, she just, because her excuse was, oh, I'm doing this because I care. I'm giving you medicine because I care. But like, she was getting these false diagnoses from big pharma, and she was abusing the medical system to hurt me. And in the end, I ended up getting a confession from her. She told me she did it on purpose, and she she freaked out after she said that. And she called the police and tried to be like that, oh, that I'm coming to hurt her. But I'm like, no. I'm like, you hurt me. That's not what's happening. But the thing is that while I was healing, I didn't have access to cannabis. I was in Texas. So I wasn't able to me, you know explore that the way that I wanted to. I had fallen into alcohol. Unfortunately, that was the most common, that was the most socially acceptable, that was what I could have access to, and that led me down a really bad path. So when I finally moved and when I was able to get cannabis, that's when my healing, I feel, really began. That was able to soothe my fried nervous system. That was helping me to be able to cope, helping me to be able to have a good day, really, and get back to feeling normal. And so when all these people online are saying, oh, it'll cause psychosis, it'll make you crazy, it'll make you violent, I'm like, I smoke daily, heavily daily. And I can tell you, I am the complete opposite. I don't want to hurt anybody. I haven't hurt anybody. I have no intention to hurt anybody. It's not at all what they're saying. And I will never stop telling my story, because I need people to hear that, look, I am an example. I'm right here. I am heavily mentally hurt, but I am using cannabis, and it's not hurting me. It's actually helping me. I'm one of the cases that, of so many millions of other stoners out there, who, we, as soon as we introduce cannabis in our life, we're okay. That's the missing piece. And it could be that way for so many others, but we got to get the information out there.
And it's difficult because like you don't want people who are just using it for like dangerous purposes,
Yeah.
like self medicating over other serious problems,
Mhm.
to try to co-opt the excuse or co-opt it as an excuse. But you're absolutely right. Like, people who have genuinely been through like true trauma, or people who are genuinely really sick, having availability to something that is like literally your body is built to have cannabis receptors. I don't think that that's a coincidence. I think that if you believe in God and in God's design, then there's a purpose for our bodies literally having an endocannabinoids. I think there's a reason that the people that we ascribe to evil to are the ones who lead the forefront against cannabis. I think that it's just like, again, people need to be able to have the conversation openly and freely. And even that is something that we don't have the privilege of. We talk about all the time that we have free speech in this country, but that's not necessarily true. Free speech is kind of just, I don't think any place has ever truly had free speech. We certainly have free speech to a degree that most other places are not privileged enough to have. But if you can't even talk about the benefits of research without worrying about being on some sort of watch list, if you can't even share your own testimony, then how free is our speech really?
Right. That's so true.
Yeah, so here we have somebody in the audience here. Pot has helped me so fucking much. It's for pain. Yeah, no, people who have never smoked it are often the first people who are on the crusades, because they often also have, alcohol problems, or like, the same. It's like the trope of like the wine mom who like pops his Xanax and is like, ugh, it's like so dangerous to smoke weed.
Right.
So I do actually have the video of your cannabis testimony here.
Oh.
If you want, I can play that.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll play it as a little break. We'll be right back after this video.
Hi, my name is Vizerant, and this is my cannabis testimony. I am a Munchausen's by proxy abuse survivor. For over 17 years, I was held hostage in my home. I wasn't allowed to leave. I wasn't allowed to get a job. I wasn't allowed to go to school or have money or a bank account or a license. During this time, my abusers built an insanity case against me so that if I ever got out to tell anyone what happened to me, they would have a forged medical history to discredit me. In 2016, I would end up getting the confession straight from the horse's mouth that she had indeed hurt me on purpose with the intent to kill me. And instead of trying to make things right from that moment on, she hung up on me, called the police, made a false report saying that I was coming to take her life. So answer me this using your own reefer madness logic, where you say that people become crazy and violent immediately after using cannabis. Why are my abusers still alive? How have I never harmed or taken another life despite using cannabis every single day? How? Did this pandemic just skip me? And only me? Come on. For the next 10 years after that, I would endure relentless harassment from her on multiple numbers until finally I got a district judge to uphold a cease and desist to where now she is no longer able to contact me. How would you feel if the people that you love and trusted the most were actually the ones plotting your demise and hoping that you would die? That's my reality. I felt like a waste of a person. My own mother wasted my time, kept me from school, kept me from being secure, robbed me of all my financial prospects. Stricken with grief, I went for the only substance widely available, legal in almost all states, and the most socially acceptable. What do you think that was? My efforts to drown my sorrow got me addicted to alcohol, to the point where I woke up in the hospital after being in a coma for 3 days with a blood alcohol level of 0.80. The doctor had no idea why I was still alive. During my 3-day coma, I saw Jesus Christ, and he said he wasn't done with me yet. When I woke up, I knew that I needed to make a big change for my life. Fast forward to now, I am now in a legal cannabis state. Since then, I have researched cannabis and dedicated my life to finding out the absolute truth about it. I am a heavy daily cannabis user, and my life has only gotten better since that horrible time. To the reefer madness shills, it's not just that you're lying about cannabis. It's not just that you're paying people to lie. It's that with every lie you post, you are spitting in the face of every survivor who uses cannabis to heal. What you're telling us is you would rather see us suffer and be addicted to alcohol and opioids than get natural healing from God that grows out of the ground. If you guys can get organized, so can we. Making an enemy out of me was your first and biggest mistake. I can't be stopped, I can't be silenced, and there is no amount of money on this planet that could ever buy me into submission. I'm dedicating the rest of my life to making sure that the public knows the absolute truth about cannabis and knows that you all are behind its lies. We will make sure that history remembers you for the shills that you are. I encourage everyone who has cannabis in their life to record your testimony under the hashtag #MyCannabisTestimony so that the world can hear straight from the source how cannabis has helped you. While there are pros and cons to using cannabis because every person is different, trying to insinuate that people are dropping dead and going crazy and becoming violent upon first use across the board is gross. So join me in sharing your cannabis testimony today and help me re-educate a world that is suffering from reefer madness.
Yeah, honestly, that video was one of the reasons that I asked you to have you on the show in the first place, because I identify so strongly with the vibe of like, you will not fucking buy me into not talking about this. It has saved so many people's lives. And I've shared about it so many times on this show, but one of the big reasons that I'm such a proponent of particularly medical cannabis is because I had a very close friend go through serious heroin addiction, like really crippling heroin addiction, and the only thing that got him off and got him through withdrawal so that he can go to rehab was a 1-to-1 of THC to CBD.
Wow.
And I will like never forget to this day, like I kind of had what I call like a hippie intervention.
Yeah.
And I like kind of convinced him, like, you know, maybe you shouldn't be on, you know, maybe this is, you know, fucking up your life and you're gonna die, and I don't want you to do that. And I was kind of able to like bring him to this moment of like, okay, I'll get help. And at the time in particular, I had a lot of friends who were working in rehabilitation centers who had like gotten sober, particularly off heroin themselves. And I had a really close friend who was like the head of one of these programs, and he's like, all right, like help get him through withdrawal, and he could just come here. I'll just like let him be here. And I gave him like I think an edible, and like we smoked a little, but like I gave him a 1-to-1, and we were just kind of stoned watching a show or something, and he's like crying. He turns to me crying, and he's like, I don't want to go get heroin right now. Like, how the fuck does that work? And that in that moment alone, like that was enough to like completely change my mind on everything. Like any reservations I had prior to this were completely gone. And not only did he get through the withdrawals and was able to like get into rehab, but he still to this day like doesn't use drugs, doesn't smoke weed. Like so the idea to me that like you can be against opiates but you can't be pro weed in the same breath. It's like, you know, shooting yourself in the foot. It's so, and like that's not even my own testimony. Like like I said, I think if I hadn't found cannabis when I was 13, I would have gone to a lot harder drugs. And I, you know, who knows? But I really do believe that, and I'm not, that's not to say that other children should be doing cannabis. I was far too young to start using cannabis. But you know, I know people who use it every day to this day, and they're some of the most like put together and successful. And you know, do you know anything about Scott Adams?
No, I don't think so.
So Scott Adams did the cartoon called Dilbert, and he does
yeah.
okay, so he I might re-release it, especially considering he's kind of really sick. But we did an episode together, and he explained that in college he had like really bad intestinal problem. He had really bad digestive. I think it was GI problems specifically. And if he hadn't found cannabis, he was contemplating killing himself because he was just so uncomfortable with life in general. And when he was like, at like a college party or whatever, and he hit a joint, and he was like, holy crap, like my stomach feels better. What? And there are so many stories that aren't Scott Adams, but like people, especially when it comes, again, I'll make it about right wing again, but when it comes to the right, who are like, oh well, like there's no such thing as a successful right wing stoner, and it's like, Scott Adams wants you. Like, it's really amazing to me the kinds of things that people have dismissed over this propaganda, and all I want is like a common sense conversation. So I would really I do these panels every once in a while with a bunch of controversial people. I'd love to have you back on to one of those at some point. We can get some of these fucking naysayers on, and we could just have an honest conversation, because ultimately I think that if we put these people in a position where they have to confront the realities of people who have like with lived experience and with like actual examples and research, and who aren't just gonna be the like, man, like just being a stoner's great, and because I see them, I see a lot of people like getting into arguments, like I said, on X in particular, and the loudest voices really are the dumbest. I don't know if you've ever made that observation.
Oh yeah, I definitely have. It's always funny when I get people telling me like on X, like they'll comment and they'll be like, "You're so lazy because you smoke so much weed," and I'm like, "Sir, I have been a part of 3 national campaigns. I have a business. I'm like, I have 2 kids. I have a house. I have land. I'm like, I'm good. Like, we got everything going on. Like I had to make a video once of like all the thing. I wasn't even trying to brag or anything. I was just trying to like list the things and show them like, look, just because we have cannabis in our life, it doesn't mean that like we're suddenly a different person. Like we're still us. We can, if you have the drive, your drive will be amplified. If you smoke cannabis and you have no drive, then that's going to be amplified.
Still gonna have no drive.
Yeah.
Like very much like it's not a cure-all. It's not going to suddenly inspire you to be more of a person than you were before.
Yeah, and it's not either way either. It's not like it makes you better or it makes you worse. It's like it's going to amplify what's already there. So if you are a driven person and you are an entrepreneur and you want to get things done, you take some weed. That's only going to help you. Like it's going to, I mean, it's already going to calm your body, anti-inflammatory, antiviral. It has all this stuff in it, and that's across the board. So it's the one factor that changes and that people don't want to accept is that it's them. It's their it's an individual case basis, and that's really tough because they don't want to face that. They don't want to see that they might be the problem.
And it's just self-reflection is really hard in a culture that teaches you to reach for instant gratification and excuses. Yeah. Unfortunately. All right, well, we've reached about an hour. I won't take up all of your day. It's been so nice to hang out and meet you. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you and how they can support your work?
Oh, wow. Okay, so you guys, if you want to follow me, you can follow me on X. I'm at VIZURANTVIS. I'm also on Instagram, VIZURANT. And if you are on Social Circle, I'm on there as well as Visrant. So yeah, I'm on most platforms actually.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you coming on, and I hope that one day we can do like a big cannabis panel. So I always love, it's great to have a conversation with people who understand or on the same level as you, but it's also really great to be able to like challenge the opinion of people who may disagree. I think it would be fun. It'd be fun to have you on. Hopefully we'll have you back again sometime regardless. But for everybody who's watching, make sure you're following, make sure you go and support all of Visrant's work. And hopefully we'll get her back again. In the meantime, make sure you're also following the War Boy Studios, CoulterCulture on Rumble, X, and YouTube. Stay tuned because we're going to be on Parler TV really soon. That's going to be really exciting. And again, this has been WARPAINT. I hope that you all have worn it well.